Good evening, pilots and mercs. Today we're going to be reviewing a video called Everything That Is Wrong with Borderlands 4. Now, my background with Borderlands has been that I played partway through Borderlands 2. I need to finish it. I got all the way up to a very critical moment involving with Jack. I'm not going to spoil it a little bit if you haven't played Borderlands 2. I've completed the third one, oddly enough, and some of it's DLC, not all of it, but so I have a little bit of understanding of what's going on here, and I've seen Borderlands 4 and its wonderful reception, especially with the performance. Very crisp, very well optimized game that would not make my PC blush whatsoever. But yeah, this is by Killer 6. The link will be in the description as always. And grab your snacks, grab your drinks, and let's roll the film. Everything that is wrong with Borderlands 4.
Borderlands 4 is a great game with a lot of potential, but like every single Borderlands game that came before it, it has...
I'm gonna disagree. I know a little bit of the story, and spoilers for a second. When you hear the word trash, you'll know when to pick back up the video. So if you don't know, Borderlands 4 essentially revolves around the timekeeper who uses these bolts to keep people in check. Your character is given immunity to this because otherwise the story wouldn't function correctly, because you're immediately injected with the bolt. Cool. MacGuffin saves you, you're good. There's a lot more story explanation, but we don't have time for that because I yap too much as is. Which would be great. It was a great setup for the actual story, regardless of my previous mention about MacGuffins. The timekeeper proceeds to fuck off and not be part of the story for the next 30 hours. Instead, you get count them, three different people to go to different parts of the island, or different quadrants of the continent. If it sounds familiar, it's because Far Cry 5 did it, and it was bad enough as is. Yeah, it's like everyone saying, "Oh, it's a good game with a flawed foundation when it comes to optimization." I'm gonna say no. From what I've seen of the story, it's pretty bad. Anyways, trash. Let's move on.
There's a plethora of problems. This is everything wrong with Borderlands 4. First, launching the game weeks ahead of its original release date did it no favors. That extra time would have greatly benefited the developers to polish and smash bugs. Instead, they hyped up the early release.
Yeah, I don't know why you
and then
would
they
go ahead
dropped
and
the
do
game
that.
with a ton of bugs and performance issues. Marketing and hype was another big issue for Borderlands 4. Don't get me wrong, I enjoyed seeing Borderlands 4 commercials on TV during prime.
It's bad enough when you're using Unity as the base engine. I won't rattle too much.
Time, and it was wild and exciting, but there were some weird choices too. Investing likely $500,000 to show Borderlands 4 on the ball in Las Vegas for one day. That's kind of weird.
Yeah.
And then there's the Borderlands movie and the tweets by Randy Pitchford, the CEO, both increased a...
That's a part of it. I don't know why you would go on Twitter, of all places, again, and just call your consumers stupid. That's where I checked out. I was like, I don't want to deal with that. If you're gonna call me stupid and say that I need to upgrade my hardware, especially when I'm sitting here with a 5070 Ti, like basically almost top of the line, and I would get like barely 60 frames per second without optimization from like DLSS, something's wrong. And nowadays, you're gonna
negative
be paying
perception of the
even more for
franchise.
that.
Fair or not, the Borderlands movie flopping did irreparable harm to the franchise. I've only been in one movie ever in my life, and it's a flop. So me and Sydney Sweeney have one thing in common.
Oof.
Ultimately, Borderlands 4 didn't
That's
feel the
rough. I'm
same
sorry,
level of
buddy.
hype as Borderlands 3 at launch. I can't quite put my finger on all the reasons why that is, though. Another huge problem is the music of Borderlands 4. Gone is the amazing work of Rayson Varner and Jesper Kidd, and it's been
You would be surprised just how much music affects a video game. I think that's what drove Skyrim and its popularity. I don't think too many people talk about that, but Jeremy Soules did a really good job with like Skyrim, for example. And without that, for some of the newer titles, it doesn't work.
placed instead with a mixture of songs by Joshua Caro and Finishing Move. And Finishing Move did a great job on Borderlands 3 with the Revenge of the Cartels content. So on paper, this should work really well. You got an accomplished composer and then this awesome group that did really good music previously. But there's a huge lack of music just happening in the game. In previous games, there would be a constant theme per area that would play and give an ambiance that defined the style and the feel of the Borderlands games. It's sort of like a space western with hints of sci-fi and fantasy. Now we
Maybelline, New York.
get the same generic fight music and themes throughout, and it just feels hollow.
Yeah,
probably the biggest problem with Borderlands 4 at launch is the lack of endgame. Sure, we have the ultimate level climb, but that's basically just replaying the same story missions where you can't skip dialogue and they add on terribly annoying modifiers. Borderlands 1 launched with no real endgame, but at least it had bonus playthrough that you could do on harder difficulty. Borderlands 2 launched with 2 raid bosses, neither of which you could defeat legitimately on normal mode, forcing you to replay the story again and really refine your build to defeat them. Also, one of those two, Vermivorous, required you to play in a multiplayer session to even have a chance to see them spawn. Borderlands the pre-sequel launched with Irajira and the Invincible Sentinel, the former not really being a raid boss, but the latter being one of the best.
I wouldn't necessarily know any of this because I completed my playthrough of it and I was just like Borderlands 3, for instance. I just kind of went, I'm good. But now I'm kind of wishing I did because there's a lot more content that I just missed out on. Unfortunately, Borderlands 3 hasn't been very stable for me. Which again, Borderlands 3, this isn't the fourth one, and you're already having
raid boss fights in the franchise. Then came Borderlands 3. Now, for all the hate that it gets for the story, I really feel that one of their biggest mistakes was not including a raid boss at launch. This was constantly mentioned by the community as something that everybody seemed to want, challenging endgame, but for some reason, once again, in Borderlands 4, they dropped without a raid boss at launch. How does this keep happening?
You can't keep getting away with it!
Also, there's no real reason to do the ultimate Vault Hunter levels for farming in Borderlands 4, because one of the only things to do right now in Borderlands 4 is hunt for shiny drops, aka Phosphines, which are just rare cosmetic versions of our guns, but dedicated drop farming gives the exact same loot on easy mode with no ultimate levels as what you get on Ultimate 5. And I'm talking about dedicated drops, and there's going to be more on that here in a minute. Some people claim that you get more part variants on Ultimate 5 versus easy mode, but from my experience and from thousands of farms on different bosses, this just does not appear to actually be true. I think that the one difference that you get on ultimate levels is that there's certain firmware that you can only get on ultimate levels and not on non-ultimate levels. That's it. Now let's talk replayability. Every Borderlands game had New Game Plus or a True Vault Hunter mode, and then Borderlands 2 had an ultimate mode on top of that. Now personally, I'm not a fan of having to replay the story over and over as a requirement to get to the end game, but having it as an option feels like a must for this franchise. Wonderlands abandoned it, and now Borderlands 4 has done the same. Borderlands 3 completely nailed the concept by having True Vault Hunter mode be completely optional. So why abandon it once you've nailed the formula?
I'm seeing a pattern.
You need more
Just like with raid bosses and takedowns, they know what fans love. Why keep destroying those things? One thing that would help massively with doing new characters and playthroughs is a dialogue skip. It's 2025 and games from 20 plus years ago had dialogue skip. Why can't Gearbox figure out this simple feature? I played Diablo 4 when that came out.
I will tell you why. Because they've been massacring games since I would say 2001, when they did the remake of, well, not remake, but the PC port of Halo. You ever wonder why all the new Halo games look like absolute dog shit? At least for Halo Combat Evolved. It's because the version of it that we got for the sequels, like any remake or anything like that, the classic graphics are based off the Gearbox version, not the Xbox version. So what you're seeing is a Gearbox version of Halo CE, not the original one. So so if I have a little bit of a prejudice against Gearbox, that's why. They ruined one of my favorite games graphically. And it makes me a tad bit upset. Anyways,
and all I wanted to do on that game was to play the game. I didn't care about the story at all. I skipped every cutscene, I skipped every line of dialogue, and I have zero regrets. As long as it's an option and they treat it like the cutscene skip where you have to hold down a button to skip it, I think fans would love a dialogue skip. When you beat the story, you're around level 35 or so, then you have 15 levels or more potentially that you need to grind to hit max level. The most efficient way to do this is sadly vile bounties. Why bosses and drill site completions aren't worth more XP is just weird to me. It just feels like the XP grind is once again a glaring problem in this game, which is a shame because once again they had it pretty well figured out with Wonderlands, just playing the story, and then some chaos chambers would basically get you to max level without it feeling like some crazy chore. But in that same line of thought, why are we back to enemies over leveling us? Wonderlands also nailed this formula. Have all enemies scaled to the player's level at all times, but with bosses being 2 or more levels above you to increase the difficulty on those. In Borderlands 4, there's points where if you try to go too fast through the story, the game will punish you by making enemies 5 to 10 levels higher than you. It's unfun, it's terrible balance, and honestly...
And this part is what kills a lot of games for me. If I have to go and... if I have to be pushed off into side content, if I want to do side content because I genuinely want to, like I'm playing with a bunch of friends, I want to, again, yes, what are those? I'm a VTuber, but if I want to explore the side content and get more XP, because I genuinely want to, that's cool. But if I want to do the main story and then just level up through that, I should be able to. One of the core foundations, especially for like D&D, is always tell your player yes. Yes, however, this will happen. Yes, and is usually how you do those things. Again, it's not like catering to a fault. It's more, yes, you can do this thing. You have the freedom of will. However, you go and get smacked upside the face. And again, like, I think it should be challenging to some extent, but it's like 5 or 10 levels over leveled. I think
it's
that's
lazy
ridiculous.
Game development. This is also likely a product of forcing Borderlands 4 to be an open world game. When you have options to, go through a certain area faster than others, that's going to be an issue. Borderlands 2 was essentially the exact same type of game as Borderlands 4, an open world, but it had load screens dividing the zones. That's the only difference between Borderlands 2 and Borderlands 4 in terms of the game world. Like, literally every single section of Borderlands 2 was connected. You just had a load screen and it worked perfectly well. I really feel like open world was entirely unnecessary for this game, and it led to much more problems than solutions. Another big problem that Borderlands 4 has is immune phases. We've told them so many times now. After evil Lilith,
God, yes, I hated this so much. And again, this doesn't just apply to Borderlands. You have this with you've had this with other games as well. Titanfall did this with the Sloan boss fight, which is something that kind of irks me about the speedrun. Again, that's a different topic. Mouthpiece is a huge example of this. If we're going back to Borderlands for a second, you absolutely shred through his health bar because, well, I'm usually running a mech with Arrow 4 or equivalent to Borderlands, or just basically warheads, essentially. And he'll just go from taking a bunch of damage to immune, and then that's it. I'm just like, if I'm gonna drop him, I'd rather just drop him straight up, because that just breaks it. It just breaks the immersion for me.
You would think that they would say, hey, people freaking hate that kind of stuff, but no, it keeps returning. Like, I get that some
Destiny
bosses need to have like
actually.
a phase where, like, you know, something happens story wise,
Like
and
Destiny
you know
1,
that's
Destiny
great.
2,
But
a
after
lot
the
of
story, get rid of that completely. Like the bio enemies, why do we have to deal with that bio bull crap again after the freaking story? Just let us go in there and shoot them, man. Like, it doesn't need to be Elden Ring over here. Now, I've gone into detail about why the Halloween event was so bad in this video, so I won't rehash it all here, but I'll sum it up with, this was the laziest content
Halloween
we've ever
event?
had
Because
in
Borderlands 3
Borderlands
was kinda
ever.
fine.
Whoever okayed this content should not be in charge of any future content or game development decisions. It's sad and it's embarrassing. And honestly, I still don't.
I would say get rid of a lot of the people who are working on these games right now. I'm not talking the lower end, I'm talking the higher end. Get rid of them. You need... And I'll go a step further. If you're an investor into these games, stability is not going to be your friend with these games. You should be telling more people to take risks. Because if you want a game to do well, you need to take risks. With these sorts of games, you need to make outlandish games. How do you think indie studios survive? I'm not talking to the companies.
Feel like they've even tried to
these companies
apologize
are doing
for it.
awful shit
Dedicated
right now,
drops
they're not
feel
gonna change.
horrible in this game. Some as low as 3% from my
They are not
testing.
gonna
Now, if you're not
change.
familiar, Borderlands has always had a system where certain bosses would have a specific piece of loot that only they could drop. For example, Bonehead in Borderlands 1 could drop the Bone Shredder. In Borderlands 2, Savage Lee could drop the Unkempt Herald. In the pre-sequel, Meg
I didn't know
could drop
about
the
this,
Torrent.
actually.
In Borderlands 3, Road Dogg can drop the Hellwalker. In Wonderlands, LeChance could drop the Sword Explosion. And in Borderlands 4, Axe Maul can drop the bot. But let's take a look at those drop percentages per
Okay.
game. Bonehead had a 100% chance to drop the Bone Shredder in Borderlands 1, but it could have all kinds of
That's
different
good.
part variants on it to improve it, including potentially a hybrid of two weapons. Savage Lee in Borderlands 2 originally had a 3% chance to drop the Unkempt Herald at launch, and it felt terrible, but in the
We love
Handsome
those drop
Collection update, they released a
percentages.
patch that adjusted this to a 10% drop chance, and the fans rejoiced. They love this change. In the pre-sequel, Meg has a 10% chance to drop the Torrent, which feels perfect. For Borderlands 3, Road Dogg had a 30% chance to drop one of 3 drops, basically making each drop a 10% chance. In Wonderlands, LeChance
Fun.
has a
We
miserable
love that, especially when you have to work so
3.3%
hard
chance
to
to
get
drop the
those, I
Sword
would
Explosion until you increase your loot luck up to 48,000, which requires beating the game, unlocking the loot luck shrine, and completing 20 chaos chambers, and then you have a whopping 6% chance at the drop. This
Wow,
was clearly
isn't
a
that-
stupid decision based on a knee-jerk reaction to world drops in Borderlands 3 being too common. Again, they just completely missed what everybody was complaining about. Finally, in Borderlands 4, Axe Maul seems to have a 3% chance to drop the
6%
bot.
after all
Now, I
that
say it
is-
seems this
is
way
so
because
sad.
data miners have not yet been able to determine the drop rates, so I did 500 runs of Axe Maul myself, and I calculated the numbers based on what happened for me. Now, it is much faster to farm most bosses in Borderlands 4 with the Moxie's big Encore machine, but a 3% drop chance just sucks no matter how you stack it. It sucked in Borderlands 2 at
that's
launch,
gonna
it
be
sucked in
bad,
Wonderlands,
especially
and
when you
it
try and
sucks
get all
even
of
more
those
now
weapons.
when they should have learned from prior experience.
Or just like
Get
trying
your
to...
limited edition display.
But even worse still is some bosses have no drops at all, and some share drops with another enemy. The top offenders for that second part are Fractus sharing the Chuck with Hank from the Foundry Freaks, and also Fractus sharing the UAV with Mimicron. Fractus, therefore, only has one item in his loot pool that you can't get from another boss, the Protean Cell Shield. Now, there's others too. The Bugbear is both Battle Wagon and Biothresher Omega's loot pools. Potato Thrower can drop from Varaxis or the Ripper Roadbirds. I'm also very much opposed to allowing almost every single item in the game to world drop. There's a few things that you can only get from its dedicated source, like the Jelly Grenade from Splash Zone or the Chomurky Grenade from Frank the Furnace and the Foundry Freaks drill site, but there's still some named enemies who respawn like Cratchman, Wreck and Burrow, Tsunami, and Whitetail who have no drop at all, and there's still some items that have no dedicated drop location. Most notably, legendary enhancements. Now, I went over a really good solution for legendary enhancements in this video if you want to go check that out. Marcus bobbleheads, I feel like those should have been a one-time collection toward a challenge completion. Imagine the race to find them all. Doing the level 30 skip still has the map mostly fogged out. This means that one of the things you have to do on a level 30 story skip character is drive around unfogging the map. This is an extremely unfun way to play the game, and it makes me not want to do the level 30 skip at all, so therefore it's pointless. The UI and the menus are a step down from Borderlands 3, which was already a step down from Borderlands 2. Just keep it simple. You don't need to fancy up the menus this much, especially if it means that they're barely going to work. Also, map navigation on controller just sucks. No field of view slider on console launch is a huge fail. I'm glad they fixed.
How have we went through so many damn games and they still haven't fixed this one issue? How difficult is it in 2026? I guess it came out last year. How difficult is it to get an FOV slider? How? I'll be real with you, I can't play anything above or below 120 FOV. 100's fine. Anything below that, I feel like I'm just kind of, I feel like I have blinders on trying to play a video game, and it makes me sick physically. Like, I get motion sickness from it. So trying to sit there and play, especially Bethesda games, is just like, it's so bad. And if I was on console, I'd just be like, I'm returning this. I can't do that. Like, how do you do that?
But man, anyway, what the hell? There's probably a bunch more things that I'm not thinking of, so feel free to call out any other issues in the comments down below. Again, I love this game. The base game is exceptionally fun, the gameplay is great, and I like the story more than most of the other games, but Gearbox just can't seem to release a game without a bunch of issues, often completely forgetting lessons learned while making those same mistakes. Please, Gearbox, please take notes or something. If you enjoyed this video, a like would be amazing. It helps the algorithm know to show this to other Borderlands fans. Please consider subscribing for more Borderlands content. Thank you for watching. Take care.
You see, I'd be willing to give this game a chance. Like, I realize I'm kind of an outsider to this series to some extent, right? I did play Borderlands 2 and 3. I completed 3, which was hit or miss. But I'd be willing to give this game a chance had the developer, the CEO, not called out gamers as a whole, trying to say, well, you need to upgrade your rig. Messed up the optimization, made the game completely horrible when they messed things up. They messed up triggers to the point where sometimes your character would be talking to somebody important in the story and they just sound like they're talking to themselves. And maybe actually made a great game in the first place. Like, this is one of those times where I'm just like, and on top of all that, it's like, I don't even want to talk about the TOS for Borderlands 4. It makes it so bad that I don't want to touch the game. I just want to avoid it altogether. At least as far as playing it, right? At least this one. I would say Borderlands 3 was decent, right? I think we can, at least we can say that, but I say that because I want these games to improve, but this was everything wrong with Borderlands. I think the video was well done. I appreciate him doing all the gameplay and his commentary. This was Killer 6. Again, the link to this video will be in the description. Go and support the original content creator. And as always, this has been Annika, signing out.